Welcome everyone, this is AllMinucOne Quick Shots. So folks, today I have a article here from The Hill with a press interview with Governor Andrew Cuomo. Now I'm going to play this and I just want you to listen.
This is an emotional time, political time. Everybody has their own strongly held opinion, right? You have a strongly held opinion that says COVID is all an overreaction, it's a hoax, I'm not wearing a mask, I'm not following these rules.
No one said COVID was a hoax. There are a few people that believe it's a hoax. I think the argument is this is a really bad cold that has lethal consequences for certain people, certain populations, but the majority of the population can get back to normalcy.
You have sheriffs upstate who have said, I'm not going to enforce the law. Now, how a law enforcement officer says, I choose not to enforce that law, I believe that law enforcement officer violates his or her constitutional duty.
No, Mr. Cuomo, you are violating your constitutional duty by presenting edicts across your state and saying that you must lock down. You cannot have so many people in your house. You cannot do this. You cannot do that. Or as Pennsylvania has done, so they've basically said, yeah, even in your house, you should be wearing a mask. People, this is insanity. You quarantine people who are sick. You isolate those who are ill from the rest of the population. It is that simple. The climb, the second wave, whatever we want to call it, in cases is largely due to testing and is universally across the globe, except for a few nations, from what I understand. And those nations dealt with this much better. They generally have healthier populations than we do in the United States and most of Western Europe.
I don't consider them a law enforcement officer because you don't have the right to pick laws that you think you will enforce.
Mr. Cuomo is mistaken here. Actually, the goal or role of the sheriff is to keep and uphold the Constitution, as well as enforce the law. This little book right here, County Sheriff's American's Last Hope, is a book that was released in 2009 about the sheriffs having the role of being the last line of defense for the Constitution. Sheriffs do this all the time. They decide which laws they will enforce and which ones they will not. They're supposed to do this on a constitutional basis. Even a beat cop is allowed to decide if he wants to cite you, give you a warning, let you go, do whatever, or take you in. Now, there has been laws passed over time that essentially state that cops have to do something about something or there's liability against them. So domestic abuse is often one of these things, which makes domestic abuse a troubling issue within law enforcement. And as far as, yes, the constitutional duty of the sheriff goes, well, you, Andrew Cuomo, have not passed any laws on restrictions. You've given illegal, unconstitutional mandates and edicts to have these lockdowns. They were ruled unconstitutional in both Michigan and Pennsylvania. Now, the court system, I'm sure in New York is far more liberal, that is leftist, and so they only care about centralized authority. But Cuomo is not the king of New York.
And you don't enforce laws that you don't agree with, right? That's not a law enforcement officer. That's a dictator. So you're not a law enforcement officer. You can't pick and choose.
Actually, you can, and historically, it is the way that it goes. Andrew Cuomo doesn't seem to understand English either because the word dictator has a very specific meaning. So let's look at that real quick. Just a quick Google search, right? a ruler with total power over a country, typically one who has obtained control by force. What have you done, Andrew Cuomo? You've obtained control by force. A person who behaves in an autocratic way. In ancient Rome, a chief magistrate with absolute power appointed in an emergency. So here I went to look at the etymology, and unfortunately, etymology online is not, well, sorry, this is etymology online. This is not as a good of a site, but let's see here. For some reason that popped up. Let's go back here. Etymology.com is what I was looking for. Was not working. Now it is. That's good. Good. A minute ago it was giving me an error sign. So, what does it say? A Roman chief magistrate with absolute authority, from Old French dictator and directly from Latin dictator. Agent, noun, of dictator? I don't know. I don't remember my Latin, guys. It's been a long time. It says say, often, or prescribe. That's what Cuomo is doing. It says to say, to speak, right? That's where we get the word to dictate. In Latin, a dictator was a judge in the Roman Republic temporarily invested with absolute power. This historical sense was the original one in English. The transferred sense of absolute ruler, person possessing unlimited powers of government, is from the 1600s. That of one who has absolute power or authority of any kind in any sphere is from the 1590s. Now, this is the book I just mentioned, The County Sheriff, America's Last Hope. You can find this online in a PDF, or you can go buy a copy of it yourself. But what Cuomo is saying here is absolutely, utterly absurd. And in fact, Cuomo and all of the other governors with these crazy restrictions are being the dictators. This is why people like Governor Noem up in South Dakota, because she is not doing any of these things, and they're doing just fine. And here we have his quotes again. And down here, just to read what he has to say. You want to be able to act irresponsibly, but then endanger the ambulance driver and endanger the nurse and endanger the doctor because of your actions. It's not like your actions only affect you. People will die. Think about the children. That's what this is about, folks. It's absolute absurd nonsense because Cuomo wants and likes his power and authority. It is sickening and it is insane. And to sit here and say, well, the sheriff, he's a dictator. No, you're the dictator, Cuomo. You're the dictator, and the sheriff is actually upholding his constitutional responsibility. Delve into what it means to be a sheriff, the purpose of a sheriff. There's a reason why we elect them, and we do not appoint them. The problem within cities with police is that the chiefs are appointed by the mayors, and the mayors have control over them. It works sort of similar within the state system. If there's a state police system, which I believe every state and the union currently has a state police now, a sheriff is something different. He's a representative of the people. That is why he is a politician first and foremost. And they decide what laws are constitutional and what are not. Now, there have been many sheriffs over the months who said, we will not enforce these laws. We cannot. And they very well shouldn't, because it is utterly destructive. Utterly destructive to the lives and livelihoods of these folks who have to face these lockdowns for this coof that has a high percentage of survival, 99% or more. Now, it's a little bit lower in the aggregate if you add all of the people that Andrew Cuomo and other governors like Gretchen Whitmer put into nursing homes and allowed to catch this disease, the elderly, that they allowed this disease to spread amongst with younger people. This was horrible policymaking. It was against the CDC guidelines. It was against the coronavirus task force guidelines, yet they did it anyways, and that is why they had record numbers of cases. There's a meme out there going around with Osama bin Laden on one side and Andrew Cuomo on the other, and talking about who killed more New Yorkers. And directly by his actions and his edicts and his orders, which are all unconstitutional, the dictator Cuomo essentially has murdered more people in New York than the attacks of 9/11. And that, my friends, that is quite sad. But that's about all I have for this, guys. I hope you all are going to have a good Thanksgiving and will get through this difficult time and can keep your chins up. Keep your chin up over all of this nonsense with these authoritarian powers that be that wish to tell you how to live your life by every second and every moment. And with all that, this has been AllMinucOne Quick Shots, and I wish you all well.